Because we're not being recorded. Welcome you to the March 26, 2024 Board of Education meeting. We are calling the meeting to order. It is 7:06 p.m. and if everyone could please rise for the pledge of allegiance. The public meetings law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public body at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Verona Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published in the Star Ledger, posted with the Township of Verona and the Verona Education Association. Posting of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and the agenda were posted at the Verona Board of Education office and on the Verona Public Schools District website. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolution have been made available to the public via the Board of Education website. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call attendance.
Yes. Mr. Walker? Present. Mrs. Roselle?
Here.
Mrs. Farrar?
Here.
Mrs. Prisco?
Here.
Mr. Boone?
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our routine matters, I need a motion, please, to approve our minutes, resolution 1. Motion by Mrs. Rosella, seconded by
A second.
Mrs. Ferrara. Are there any discussions? Mr. Cruz, if you can please call roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion passed.
thank you. Superintendent's report, I can speak to Peter Duffy.
Good evening. I'm going to share my screen because I want to do a little strategic plan goal update. No, I'm not going to share my screen. I can't. I'm sorry. My computer was just reformatted and it's not set up to be able to show the screen. So I will speak to what I was gonna, and I will send it to you and post to the district website. You know, I just this morning thought about reinstalling Zoom on this computer for tonight and I apologize. Okay. Hang on one second. Let me see if I can maybe I can. Oh, maybe I can. Hang on. No, I have to quit and reopen. I don't want to do that. Okay, so and just quickly going over where we are with regard to strategic plan, we have an overview. We have 4 goal areas. The first one is improving student outcomes or achievement. And we had a lot of items in that particular action plan for that for the first goal area. We are either in progress or have completed many of those items in year 1. So a lot of it was providing professional development to our teachers regarding reading instructions. So we provided foundations training to K1, 2, and 3. That's where we do foundations instruction, which is a phonics program. And we provided professional development from the foundations organization to those teachers in September and October. We have also adopted for next year a district-wide instructional model based on the essentials of rigor from instructional empowerment or the Marzano Center and the Marzano focused teacher evaluation model, which is a much more comprehensive but easy to use model for teachers. And we are training our administrators this year. Teachers are going to be trained in September. And that is what we're using now is very antiquated. So it will be very helpful to provide better feedback to our staff. We also adopted the principal focused principal evaluation model that we started with this year. We are conducting an intensive standards review for which our teachers are really, I'm eternally grateful for the level of participation we're getting from our staff. It's really wonderful. Mr. Stevenson did a pretty hefty professional development on February 8th. And this Julie Giacomo, who's here with us temporarily while Julia Peter is on leave, has done a tremendous amount of professional development in the short time that she's here. So it's been really great. And our teachers are sending us emails thanking us. It's really phenomenal. We are going on to the second goal area, which is college and career readiness and 21st century learners. And our first goal was to develop and implement a gifted and talented program at the elementary level. That has been completed. It will be ongoing moving forward. We are looking to continue with the New Jersey State Bar Foundation peer mediation program and continue to train our teachers down at the state bar. We are looking to increase our dual enrollment. So Mr. Cogdill is looking to form new dual enrollment contracts with the various programs in the area, such as we're looking at William Patterson, Seton Hall, additional programs at Montclair State. We're looking to improve the capstone program going forward and trying to streamline that. We have our LLD life skills program where our kitchen is complete and our students started making and baking and selling their wares, and that will continue as well. And we added a career counseling room that is not in use yet. I'm going to look into when that's going to start being in use, but it's beautiful. And for goal area 3, social and emotional learning and DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We have completed the transition to Care Plus. We are continuing with our Rutgers Climate Initiative with, it's best to do that climate survey every other year. So we will be conducting it early next year for this, because we conducted it last year. We are deep into piloting of the Positivity Project at HBW, and it's getting great feedback. Mrs. Ackerman met with the teachers that are rolling it out, and they're all giving it thumbs up. So we just have to figure out how to do it school-wide next year. So that's our next stage, is to figure out what it looks like when every staff member in grades 5, 6, 7, and 8 are involved in that program. The students actually are giving it the thumbs up too, those that are involved. So that's always a positive. We continued the good work that Ken Shelton started with the Patello Group this year in working with our staff for diversity, equity, inclusion. We heard from Reese at the last meeting about what the students experienced, and they're going to be training the trainers. So we are going to be able to provide more ongoing support throughout the school year with our own staff early next year. And for the 4th goal area, community school relations, I believe, and I think the board mentioned, our website is much better. I've been a little bit lax on Facebook because it's been kind of busy, but we have Facebook now, and as well as our district website, and our website's about to improve again this summer. Mr. Balaj and I are going to unroll the new website. We have a new, it's really sharp too. And we are not carrying anything over from the old website. We're just going to build from scratch. It is lovely. It is very lovely. So that's why it's taking a little longer, because we're building from scratch rather than just pulling everything over. So one of our goals was to encourage students to volunteer for township committees. So we have students that are volunteering to be on the multicultural inclusion committee and the environmental commission. We had 2 students, Cecilia Manis and Neela, I'm going to mispronounce this. Pilari, yeah. That were selected to join that commission and do that work. And while it wasn't necessarily a part of the strategic plan, Reese Sato and Caitlin Eng are also volunteers to serve on the Verona Public Library Board. And we're looking for 2 new, because both Caitlin and Reese are graduating. So Verona Public Library will be looking for 2 new student reps to join them. With regard to parent academies, we have done several this year. We had smaller academies for HIB and code of conduct, and that really dealt with for the parents that serve on our safety teams. We had a diversity, equity, inclusion evening. I'm sorry it wasn't as well attended as we had hoped, but it also was on the night, the State of the Union. So
But I think the people who did attend, I know Ms. Prisco and I were both there. It
Yeah.
was very well run, and
very well run.
people, I think, appreciated it.
Yeah, it was very well run, and that Patello group they're excellent. And then we had social media safety at the high school in January, and we had a math academy and a literacy academy. So that goal for this year anyway has been completed, and we'll continue using academies to encourage parents into a partnership with the schools. And the CPAC and child meetings have gone off without a hitch, but those organizations are amazing. So that's that. Just district goals update. We had goals for Brookdale Avenue School. So let me just quickly go through this. I'll post this to the website too. We did get our map growth testing done for spring. So map growth predicts that at Brookdale in English language arts, we are on track to meet or actually exceed our goal in 4th grade, and we are approaching our goal, still have an opportunity to meet that goal in 3rd grade. For math, at Brookdale, it's predicting that we're going to exceed our goals in both 3rd and 4th grade. At Forest Avenue, we are on target to exceed our goals in grades 3 and 4 in reading or in ELA and approach in 3rd grade math. And we're a little off for 4th grade math, but we'll take a look and see what's happening there. For FM Brown, we are on target to meet or approach every goal set in both language arts and math in grades 3 and 4. Same with Lanning. We are a little sketchy in grade 3 math, but we believe we can get there. In HBW, we are on target to exceed our goals in all 4 grades for reading. I keep saying reading, English language arts, because MAP assesses reading, not reading and writing. So, and then for math, not as rosy a picture there for grades 5 and 6. We are approaching, and grade 7 very close. Grade 8 we are on target to exceed. Unfortunately, MAP did not give me a report for high school. It comes out blank, so I have to call them and find out why. But I do see the growth of the students in Algebra 1 from fall to spring. You can see growth and achievement increase. So all good. That is my report for this evening, and I will put an end of year report together for the board.
Ms. Superintendent, can I ask you some questions on that? So the first is, I know last year I thought we made a really smart idea where we said if you register your child for kindergarten before a deadline, we expect that you'll be able to get your child in your local elementary school. Is that true? Like, are we able to make sure that the kids that registered on time were all able to get into the elementary school they wanted?
Yes. Actually, we didn't have anyone that registered out after February 1st that has asked that we had to say no to either.
That's another thing that's lovely. That's
Yeah.
great news. The second thing, my comment is that you talked about the Rutgers climate survey in context to DEI. I've seen that survey, and it's a lot. Like they go a whole lot deeper than I think would be reasonably expected. Are we in any way obligated to use them as our climate and culture survey, or can we find them more reasonable if we want to?
We can find them more reasonable. What's attractive about them is that they're free.
Yeah, and that might be the only attractive thing about them, because I've seen their climate and culture, and it's just not reasonable, at least in my opinion.
It's long. Yeah,
it's cray. So if you deviated from that, I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world. As far as the website comment, I think that like sometimes over a lot of time, like the website just gets black on it, right? And you need to reset. And I'm actually looking to do the same thing myself. And I think it's a really cool thing. To your point about Reese being on the library committee, of course, it's the best idea ever. And I think no matter what committee Reese is on, it's going to get improved because Reese is on it.
Reese, you're going to miss him.
Oh, no, I'm going to miss Reese.
Well, we know that.
Please. The Parent Academy is a great thing. I know you know this, but in case you don't, I pay for that out of my Title I. So if there's ever that's an allowable use as well. So that's something that if we're ever
good to know.
Looking for somewhere to spend money on that's the exception. And then as far as all the goals, it feels really good that you've been accomplishing so many goals, and the district's been accomplished. That's our expectation of you. But it also feels good that you met our expectations. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to jump in off of Mr. Walker's comment on the goals. Are you at liberty or able to describe a little more about what the improvements we're doing on the capstone program? I'm a big fan of the capstone, and I know it was not a smooth process, but I know it's getting better. I'm just curious to see what directions we're heading.
Well, I think Mr. Cogdill, coming into this year, made the process more accountable. There's more accountability in it. So there's more logging that the students have to do. They're doing a much more in-depth look at what the students are applying to do. So I'll give you an example from last year. Students that, and I'm going to make it up, but it's in the ballpark of what actually happened. Let's say a student works at Lakeside Deli. They're getting paid to work at Lakeside Deli. They do their capstone at Lakeside Deli. they don't want to work for a deli for the rest of their life. The whole point of this is either to do community service or to immerse yourself into something that you're interested in. So they were allowing that. So that's changing.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of our students that really are not looking to go into education that pair up with our teachers. Almost half of them. And so they're going to cap it at 10%. And really the student needs to demonstrate that they're investigating education because they want to go into the field of education. We want to encourage that. There's a shortage of teachers, but we don't want it to happen because it's easy and because it's they don't have to do a lot of research to find something that they actually do want to do. So those are two areas that I can speak to directly. I can get more information from Mr. Cogdill.
Yeah, one thing I'm curious about is, are we doing a lot of or additional outreach to local businesses, whether it's in Verona or, the surrounding towns to make those opportunities broader for whatever career track some students are interested in?
From what I understand, and this is only my second capstone, the students are part of the experiences that they find the placement. I do know that our counselors do reach out and help students that are struggling to find placement, but I'm going to say I don't know the answer to that question offhand. I do know from the way it's been explained to me is we try to get our kids to do the legwork to find their placement.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern on that is sometimes, and this is just speaking anecdotally, that a lot of local businesses, or a few local businesses, I should say, are kind of caught by surprise and not really prepared to take on, even though it would be a worthwhile experience. And so that's kind of the area that I was coming from with that question.
Well, that's different though. So that's something we can do. Explaining our process to area businesses is different than getting students placed, right?
Right.
So that's a great point, and I'll talk to Mr. Cogdill and Mr. Merkler about that.
And I
Yeah,
also-
that's more my focus. Thank
Yeah.
you.
and
Thank you.
just to piggyback on Mr. Boone, if there's a way to think about conceptually how it could work in a hybrid type of office environment. Because I had a lovely young woman approach me about who wanted to do special ed law with, but I work in Mountainside and it's not conducive for her to go there on the day, I'm only there half the time. And I don't think many professionals would be comfortable having a student in their home. Like if there's a way that we can talk about, or just conceptualize with Mr. Cogdale and Ms. Ackerman, how something could work. Like my husband's an engineer. He would love to have a high school kid who's interested in building bridges because that's what he does. But he works in Queens on days he's not at home. So like if there's a way that we can,
There's a lot of businesses that are still hybrid.
right, that because it makes it's an extra layer that is just difficult to kind of overcome. And so maybe there's something we can do with even having a kind of an office space set up in the high school where kids can kind of go there to
We have
work,
a makerspace,
can kind of go there to work
right?
on tasks.
On tasks
and
that are
could
assigned
meet
by
with,
their
like,
mentor.
like if I would be happy to come to the high school and meet with somebody. But I wouldn't, like I said, to do it in a
In your
private
home.
home. It's just not appropriate, I
Understand.
think.
I will, I'll transfer that suggestion to Mr. Cogdill as well.
Yeah, so just 2 points for me. Well, three, I guess. First of all, like the work that's been done in the district in the past few years is incredible, and I'm very glad to see it happening. On the point of the Batella group, I think you mentioned the phrase that there will be a greater rollout to staff as in training the trainers. Like, what exactly would that look like?
We're asking, so our last meeting with Mrs. Botello was, what are your needs for next year? And the administrators began to talk, and I said, you know what? It's not our needs. It's the teachers' needs. So why don't we convene a committee of teachers that want to do more of this work? And from that committee, we're going to see which of them want to work with the Botello group to get trained to turnkey to their staff. Because right now, the Botello group is in Atlanta. And to bring them up here to reach as many staff as we can is exceedingly expensive and travel costly. So if they can train people in our staff to roll out the programs that they have already developed, unlike Ken Shelton, who was a great speaker and very interesting and very charismatic, he didn't do instructional programs with the teachers. He really talked to them and listened to them and gave them strategies. But they're more of they're all teachers. So they have more instructional model of working with our staff. So they can train our staff to work with our staff. So they want to train teachers from each building to actually provide professional development in the area of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Been on that, Reese, real quick. So I was one of the people that voted yes for DEI, and I was happy to do so, despite, you know, what some people in town thought was a good thing, it was a bad thing, whatever it was. But with any PD, eventually you want to get to the point where we learn it and then we train ourselves,
Right.
and we don't have to keep relying on the outside agency. How close are we to? And again, like I'm really proud that I voted the way I did for the DEI thing, but I don't want it to be like an every year kind of thing. Like eventually we should get to the point where we've learned it and now we're training ourselves. How close are we to that?
Next year. They'll train teachers early in the year and feel comfortable with them.
And then we train
learning now.
ourselves?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
I
And if
think-
they need a refresher, we can send a teacher to Atlanta and to work with them.
I think also to piggyback on what you said, I absolutely agree. I think, you know, budgetarily, we don't have the money to continue with consultants. But I think also when we're looking to change culture and we're looking to do any of that work, it's ground up.
It is ground
That's
up.
where it works.
Yeah, it is
That's
ground
where it actually happens
And-
anyway. So I think aside from just the fiscal end of it, I think as far as making progress, it happens when it's in the classrooms and
Yes.
it's with teachers and it's building relationships. So
And we have teachers at every
Yeah.
building that are passionate about this, that want to be involved in this work. And the reality of it is most school districts do this. They bring I'm going to use differentiated instruction as an example. 10 years ago, people brought differentiated instruction into the classroom. They trained all of their staff. 2 years later, a third of the staff was, a quarter of the staff retired, left, went on maternity leave. You have all new staff. They didn't get the differentiated instruction. You have it in the books. We did it. We did it in 2011. But unless you train your trainers to keep training other people, you're always going to have new teachers that miss the training that are going to need it. So that's a model that should be in most schools.
I think also I like
Most
to hear the
businesses.
fact that there's an instructional component to it,
Yes.
because I think at the heart of everything we do should be instruction and good instruction. So I think to anything that regardless of what the focus is,
Mhm.
I think anything that we're looking to do should kind of run through that vein of instruction so that it becomes that day in, day out. So I'm happy, so happy to hear that.
Yeah, and if you combine the work that the Positivity Project has the potential to do and the work that the DEI training has the potential to do with staff and with students, you're going to need less of it moving forward, right? I mean, we're seeing a lot of racial and racial slurs and aggressions, microaggressions, macroaggressions. We've seen a lot of aggressive language toward the LGBTQ community across our middle and high school in the past couple of years. If we really embed what the Positivity Project is giving us and train our teachers how to respond to microaggressions in a more productive way, they're automatically going to drop in terms of frequency.
And I'm glad you brought up that example, because dealing with like microaggressions or macroaggressions in the classroom is something that I've heard from teachers and students that it's needed training. And on the note of that training, I was wondering how like the selection process for the trainers might happen, if you have any idea of that, and how it might intersect with the current like DEI committee of teachers that exists.
I don't know how it's going to happen, so I can't answer you now, but we're working on that. Dr. Miller's actually putting that committee together, and we'll get together soon and find out. But as soon as we know, we'll talk about it.
All right.
I don't know how we're going to select yet. We have so many people that are interested in doing it. It's hard.
I mean,
Put Reese in charge.
yeah, well, we always put Reese in charge.
Capstone.
But I think that, in terms of supporting the students and supporting teachers, we need to make sure that the building administrators are all also deeply involved in the support. I mean, if they don't have the support from their building administrator, when they report something or want to talk about something that happened in a class, it's not going to go anywhere. And I think it'll rebound and people will just stop, which is.
Well, the administrators will definitely continue to receive training in that area as well.
Reese, you had other things you were going to say? Or did I misunderstand you?
I believe that that is the main points that I have noted down. Thank you. Oh, wait, yes, actually.
See, I knew it, Reese. You're my spirit animal.
But just in terms of the Rutgers climate report, I'm not sure what it looks like at the receiving end or in the lower grade levels. But for the high school level, I didn't hear any like negative feedback from students in terms of length or complexity or like arduousness. So if it's at like the middle grade level or on the administrative level, it's just more detail than is needed. I understand. Mm. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
Especially in Verona, because there are questions that ask the teachers about their building administrators versus the district administrators. And sometimes it's a district administrator that's stationed in your building. So we just need to be, so there were some clarity questions at the staff level. And we had a fair amount of parents that responded. It wasn't tremendously responded. So I've seen the parent survey. I just don't recall it being.
It's just modeled very generically.
Yes,
And
it's very generic. There's no room for
Yeah,
comments.
we're still a group 2 school, you know, in the suburbs, and it's the same survey that you'd give to 50 other high schools or 50 other school districts, and I'm not sure it's the right model to gauge us in particular for us to get some value out of. It's not a bad model, and it's free, which is good. But whether we create our own or create a committee to create our own, I think we might get more value out of that.
Yeah, and I have experience using Panorama. Do you know Panorama? Panorama is excellent, but it's about $17,000 a year.
You know it, then it should be free. Copy it.
No, it's the analysis that's
Mhm.
tough. Yeah.
I want to just say that I'm happy to hear that, because I had raised this last year because we had just taken a survey the previous year. So I'm happy to hear that we're doing it every other year because I think it's like that saying that you don't, you can't weigh a pig by. It's messed up. Wait, you can't. Hold on.
Diane, keep going with this. I want to hear this analogy to its
Hold on.
fullest.
Hold on. I use it for assessments. I've said it probably 6 times this week and I'm drawing blank. No, I'll come back to that. But my point is, right, it's the idea of over assessment. It's the idea of over assessment. And I think that to hear that we're doing this every other year, it makes a lot more sense because then we're able to actually see where we are, especially I think when we're thinking about our younger students in elementary and middle school who may not really understand what the survey is and they're not fully even understanding the questions, but they're taking and answering those questions on their own. So I think the idea of having it every other year. But still, it's the processing of what does it mean? What does the
Commissioner
question mean?
Ferreira, did you mean weighing up the pig doesn't make it any fatter?
I did not. Just give me
No.
a minute. Just give me
That
a
was the
minute.
first thing that came out.
I will. I got it. You can't fatten a pig by weighing it. That's what it is. That's what it is. I use it all the time with assessments and it's the same thing, right? Okay.
Thank you. Moving on, we are going to go to our business administrator report with Mr. Cruz.
Good evening, everyone. In finance this month, we have the February secretaries, treasurers, and transfer report. They're all in agreement. Recently, we submitted our tentative 2024-2025 budget to the county office. In tonight's resolution under Resolution E2, there was an update to the budget, which required us to utilize an additional $469,109 from our fund balance. And this is part of the state's calculation of our excess general fund balance. So when we submit to the state, part of the state budget tool, if we have additional funds in our fund balance and the way that the state calculates it, they will require school districts to utilize the additional fund balance. So this is actually good news because And in addition to this additional fund balance that we've are feeding into the budget, there was also 4,688 in debt service fund balance to be utilized. So at the end, it does not affect the tax levy to be raised in our previous presentation. But what it does lower our debt service tax levy by $4,688. The additional fund balance that was brought into this budget allow us to expand additional programs in technology, STEM, RTI, professional development, an additional 1.5 teacher FTE, which will have a final presentation at the end of April with those details. And once the county approves, the budget will be advertised on our on or about April 19th and presented at the April 30th board meeting. Spring is very exciting and busy time of year as we prepare to close out the school year and prepare for the new school year. And now that I see that the finance committee is on the report tonight, I'm not gonna steal that thunder on the finance committee report. I'll leave some room for those highlights from them. And this concludes my report tonight. Thank you.
Hey, the 1.5 plus FTE, that's a kindergarten teacher and half a G&T teacher?
So the 1.5, actually the kindergarten teacher we already had previously. The 1.5 is special ed.
So 1.5 new special ed teachers.
New special
Does
ed.
that mean there's 2 new employees or 1?
So for that one,
1.5.
1.5.
But I'm saying, like, is one person already doing a half and then they're doing
No.
it full time?
No, we have all
The
full-time.
1.5, all right, so 2 new
1.5.
employees, very good.
Yeah, and this kindergarten teacher comes to us, and this is not a happy thing, but Tamara Cesario, who was doing our math coaching, we can't sustain that position. It's been paid with ESSER funds for the past 2 years, and they are gone. And her salary to sustain her as a coach and then hire another kindergarten teacher was not doable in this budget. So she's going back into the classroom, and the person it's actually going back into Brookdale. I think that's where she's going. That's where she said she was.
So yes, we thank her for her service.
Yes. And if we
it could
can-
be different, we would do.
If we can
differently, yeah.
find the money, we would most certainly reinstate that position. But it's just not something that we have the money for.
Understood.
And we didn't have the money for 2 years ago when we instated the program. Yeah. The dangers of using ESSER
That's
funds.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mentioned this before the meeting a little bit, but this afternoon during lunch, I held a brief meeting with some students who are interested in running for the position next year. So we had about 4 underclassmen showed up. They're great kids, so any of them would be fantastic in this role. And I just went over the structure of the Board of Education, the student liaison's role, and answered any questions they might have. So the meeting was in no way mandatory in order to run for the position next year, just like a brief information session to get some information, because typically kids have an idea of what a vice president does, the president does, or the secretary, but this is kind of a little more niche and it just might not be as intuitive. So I offered that up this afternoon. And last thing from student council, there will be a school-wide pep rally on Thursday, March 28th, the day before break for spring sports.
We did meet. If Mr. Boone wants to highlight anything that he recalls, that I'd be happy to talk about it. But for me, just agenda items only.
Yeah, I have nothing to add beyond that, Chris.
Sure, I'll take that. And Mr. Boone, if you want to chime in.
Sure.
So we talked a bit, like Mr. Cruz mentioned, the budget is on target for approval at our April 30th meeting, right? Yep. So that's good. So you'll see on the board agenda something for NJ/ARM that is not an adjustable rate mortgage. So
I asked that question.
that is, it's like a higher interest rate account that we can utilize to generate some extra interest into our funds that Mr. Cruz has found. It seems to be fairly painless to use. And so we are recommending that we go into that. There is one thing, the community garden approached us about building a fence around, they needed about $3,000 to build a fence around the community garden. When they initially came to us 2 years ago, they simply wanted the land, and we've allowed them to expand further into the land. So at this time, we recommended not
Is it because
funding it.
because the deer?
I don't even know why. I think they just wanted to fence off the area. As far as we knew, they hadn't approached other. Do you have more?
Yeah,
on
I
that?
think the fence that's there is really like badly dilapidated and they want to replace it.
Right.
That's what you said.
Right. So from what we understood, they hadn't approached any other entity for funding or for assistance. Mr. Boone actually made a nice suggestion that perhaps Boy Scout Eagle Project could be used to assist them. So, as of now, I think we were pretty much a solid come back to us after you've exhausted all other options and we'll look into it again. The big thing that we talked about the non-resident tuition, which is also on the agenda, and I believe you had a question about that.
Yes, I guess I'll bring it up now. So during the rare times that I pay attention at legal trainings, there's a new bill, and I asked my favorite lawyer, Ms. Barzella, to confirm that I was reading it correctly. But it looks like starting July 1st of 2024, districts are going to be forced to have one uniform rate for out of district for kids that don't live in the town that they go to school in. So the district could say, hey, if you're a staff member's kid, it's 0, but then it's going to have to be 0 for anyone else. Or you could say, hey, if staff members' kids could go there for 50%, but then it would likely have to be the same thing. But
No.
tell me how you read it.
No, the way I read it was that there has to be a uniform tuition amount with exceptions for VOTEC schools, teachers, children of teaching staff members, members of the National Guard or Reserve Unit and Armed Forces, and then other exceptions pursuant to federal law, homelessness and stuff like that. But it appears that we have to have the same tuition. It doesn't say K-12, but it just says all non-resident students must have a uniform tuition amount. And I'm not quite sure. I was trying to look at the language of the bill while we were kind of discussing it, and it doesn't differentiate K-12, but it also doesn't seem to allow us to have bring forward students that may already be here.
Yeah,
For
so-
students that are existing. So,
Right, I
but
think-
when would this bill hasn't passed yet? right?
No, it's been signed by the
It
governor.
was signed by the governor.
Yeah.
My
I gotta go to that
suggestion would be
legal
to
training.
have our attorney
Okay.
look at this and
Maybe
give
have-
us his advice, because I think I just found that out about a week ago, and it seemed like when I talked to him the other day about it, he was kind of new to it. So maybe if there's, I appreciate Commissioner Barzella for understanding it better than I did. But I think we might want to ask him to kind of really do a think on this and let us know, because I don't think, I think we might be better off skipping E7 and E12 tonight so that so that we can make a better vote in a couple weeks.
Right, so maybe when we get to those, we motion to table. And then,
Yeah, you can table there's 2 E7s anyway. There shouldn't be 2 E7s, but we can table. We have to, well, I'll find out quickly because we have people that are applying
right,
to our
In
district.
fact, if we get
Yeah.
a pilot the next meeting, that might
Yeah,
be a bad
okay.
idea.
or even just give us an idea,
So then will we wait to have any discussion around that once we get that
I
Or-
think
that,
so,
'cause
because we need,
that's-
because it could significantly change what our proposal is
Okay.
if we have to have.
Then we'd have to rescind and
Right,
reapprove.
and I'd rather just,
Yeah,
I
really
think,
nice
I think
tells you, hey,
everyone would rather
Blood
have
game,
a,
but it pays money.
yeah, have a straight conversation about that.
Okay.
Um,
So somebody can make a motion when we get there.
When we get there,
table.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other issue, which we can talk about now or later, as people would like, is the hockey agreement. I have, if we want to talk about it now, Mr. Boone and I are uneasy. I think it's a good way to have a 2-year agreement. If it was a 1-year agreement, I think we both would say, yeah, for 1 year, we can figure it out and let Glen Ridge know that we're kind of uneasy. Given the current finances that we've been talking about the last few weeks, it's an expensive program to run that this year only 5 students participated in. And I do not like taking anything away from any student anywhere. But I'm also thinking I think it was $23,000 or $24,000 is a lot of money that can serve more than 5 students well. Now, it's not a big chunk of our budget. It's not and some of these students have been playing Verona hockey since they were freshmen and are going to be seniors next year, which is also difficult.
It is, but I will say that a hockey program is expensive. Even if it was 100% our kids, we'd be bearing the full cost, which is about $80,000.
Right.
So if we had 25 students paying 85,000, divide that, it's still similar
Right.
per pupil cost for a program of ice hockey. It's an expensive program.
Jorge, how much do we get per child for Verona? Regardless if they play hockey or not.
So the question per child for,
Like if we get for state aid or for what our tuition is, what would those answers be?
oh, so right now the per pupil is 17,000
17,000?
per pupil.
Is there a chance that one of the 5 students that we have would say, or his parents or her parents would say, if I can't play hockey in Verona / Glen Ridge, then I'm just going to go to Seton Hall Prep or go to Livingston, or go to any other local school that might have a hockey program? Because if that's the case,
Mr.
if we have one of those students do that, then we're right back to almost breaking even.
Yeah, Mr. Walker, one thing about that is I'm skeptical of that. First of all, those other other programs in the area are extremely competitive and internal to those schools, they tend to have significant cuts, particularly something like Seton Hall Prep. I mean, if you're good enough to be playing there, you're definitely going there on a scholarship to begin with. I think my concern or my comment is that if Verona High hockey goes away, it's not that these players are lacking in other opportunities, and an overwhelming majority between Verona and Glen Ridge, it's probably numbers are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 students across both schools. Excuse me, almost every one of them are playing at the club level anyway, and they are having significant opportunities to enjoy hockey. So the concern of losing something, I think, is minimalized. It's not the equivalent of taking away, say, football or baseball here.
Yeah, I definitely 100% respect what you're saying. For something that's 0.00006% of our budget, I don't want to take opportunities away from children. And who's to say whether 5 years from now the numbers flip and a bunch of Glen Ridge kids decide they don't like hockey and a bunch of Verona kids decide they do like it.
Which could happen.
I just don't want to be part of a board that limits unless there's a real fiscal emergency where we have to limit. And
Well,
that's my position.
yeah, I also wanted to point out that I did speak to someone who is a hockey mom of a younger age child. And there's a bunch of kids coming up. So we do know we have a pretty strong feeder in the district. And I just want to point out that I feel as Mr. Walker feels with regard to taking something away unless we're in a financial emergency, which this district has been in for years. It was no different than other years. But I also feel that at this point, pulling this out from under Glen Ridge is the wrong thing to do. We have not had a discussion with them. They have no idea this is coming. So we can only have a 2-year contract under NJSIAA regulations. We're required to do a 2-year. If we wanted to have this conversation going forward, it would be fair to them to tell them that we are talking about this as a board and not just pull it, because if we pull it, they don't have a team. And so we're pulling it from Verona kids and we're pulling it from Glen Ridge kids without having an opportunity to negotiate further for a different cost or whatever. So for those 2 reasons, it would not be my suggestion to do this.
Diane, I'd like to, with respect for Mr. Boone and Ms. Barzella, I think that before this board makes any decision, we would need the AD to get us. I don't know how long this hockey program's been around, but I'd like to see a
30 years.
10-year or 15-year, whatever it is, some data that shows us how many Verona kids we've seen since the inception of this program, how many Glen Ridge kids we've seen, what the success of the program is,
What the fluctuation has been.
the fluctuation. But I just feel like if we kill this, we ain't gonna get it back anytime soon. And I don't even know how to ice skate, and I don't know any of the rules of hockey. But I like the fact that our kids have the opportunity to play this. So I'm not saying I'm blindly against the idea to Mr. Boone or Ms. Farzella, but I'd really like us to get some data so that we can make a better decision.
I think
Mr.
I think I would feel more comfortable if we said we'll do it for the 2 years, but we're going to look forward and see what's coming down the pike. Because it looked like from the numbers that Ms. Palmarisi gave us, there's 0 or maybe 1 kid coming in from 8th grade to 9th grade that's a hockey player. So, and we're losing, I think, 3 or
I
4.
think-
So it's
Yeah, I think that it's important also to get that data for the younger kids. And I think to Mr. Boone's point about club, while I agree that there are a lot of club opportunities, I think that club sports is a tremendous financial burden on families. And I think that hockey is one of those sports, like many, right? But it's a labor of love. These kids are up 5 o'clock in the morning on the ice practicing, and the parents are paying a significant amount of money. And then to then have that taken away when you know they're getting to high school after they've been training for X amount of years is not fair. I don't think to our families. And I do like the idea of collecting that data and seeing where we stand 2 years from now, and the interest level, and then circling back to it.
Couple comments, if I may, on all of that, and I think all of those points are correct. To Mr. Walker's initial question, I believe the Verona Glen Ridge alignment is the oldest, if not one of the oldest, joint ventures in the state of New Jersey. So there's that going for it. I have witnessed over the last decade, to Mr. Walker's point, where the portions of Verona versus Glen Ridge were almost reversed. To Ms. Ferrara, the one issue is that if you are a student playing club hockey, you do not give up club hockey. By the time you get to the high school level, you are in almost all cases doing both. So again, just to reemphasize that you're not taking things away. And I would be a little cautious about looking at the number of youth playing in club sports right now in Verona is probably pretty consistent to what it has been over the past decade. And then typically something happens around 8th grade where they choose for whatever reason not to pursue it. But this is a long way of me saying that I think the hard data would really be useful for the reasons Ms. Ferrara and Mr. Walker cite.
A quick question, because I know very little about hockey, but I am a Devils fan, unlike my superintendent. Even though she's from New Jersey, like I am. But with hockey, I know there's in some states they have like female hockey or girls hockey, but with our program, if a female's
They
rise up
do.
team is good enough to
Yeah.
make it, she
Yeah, they
can
do. No,
definitely play.
they
Absolutely.
do. Last
good.
year, the Glen Ridge, Verona Glen Ridge had, I believe, four young women on the team.
Go
I think
girls.
they did. Yeah,
That's awesome.
they
Thank you
did
for letting me
play.
know
Yeah,
that.
and
Good.
women's
That's
hockey,
good.
there's no checking, so they're better off in men's hockey.
There should be checking, and they should let everybody. Anyway, another.
The Devils don't check either, so it's okay.
They don't play the trap anymore.
I just want to comment on some information as well. I mean, the hockey program with Glen Ridge has been around for, I think, since 1994, so 30 years. So to pull something out from our children, I would not be in favor of. I think though, to Mrs. Pomerizzi, I believe last year or 2 years ago, Mr. Cruz, we changed the based off of how many students we have to not pay as a high cost. So that was one way of looking at it. And I think going forward, we can look at maybe other options, maybe sponsorships or something, but I think to just say we are not going to support the hockey program with Glen Ridge is just something that I do not support. We do have 7, according to Mrs. Pomerizzi, we will have 7 players for next year. This year we had 5. And we have one that will be a senior who's been playing for probably several years. Freshman year, and I'm sure as a child. So, and I do know my neighbor across the street is big into hockey, their youth, and one of our staff members' sons. So hopefully we will have the numbers to continue going forward and growing. But I do think, like Ms. Giuseppe, you mentioned that, I just think it's not something we should do with Glen Ridge. Pull out of Glen Ridge right now. Not fair to them as well.
Yeah, and I just want to add on, a program success should never be continue. It should never be based on student success in like this area in particular. But the hockey team has been successful not just on a competitive level, but also for their sportsmanship and recognized time and time again for that. So it's a high performing character building program that's really valuable at the high school.
And that,
Thank you. Thanks.
It wouldn't kill the superintendent to root for the Devils since she lives in New Jersey. I'm just saying that
The
I'm not gonna
Devils were
motion
in
that.
Colorado when I started rooting for the Rangers.
20 minutes from the stadium. My goodness.
This is why I love you.
I got my Nico Hischier jersey at home.
So moved.
by Rocca, seconded by
I'll second.
Ferrara. Is there any discussion?
Good luck and congratulations.
Big shoes to fill.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yeah.
Mr. Boone.
Right.
Mr. Boone.
Apologies. May I ask some clarity? For some reason, I am having a hard time hearing Mrs. Prisco, so I just want to confirm that we are on resolutions A1 through A7, correct?
A1 through A2 for personnel.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries.
On to education, I need a motion to approve resolution B1 to B5.
Moved.
Waka,
I'll second.
Mrs. Frizella, are there any discussions? Seeing none, Mr. Cruz?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar, Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Moving on to resolution of athletics and co-curricular, I need a motion to approve resolution B1 to C3.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Frizella, seconded by
I'll second.
Mrs. Ferrara. Any discussion? Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to our facilities, there are none. So moving on to finance and the motion.
So hold on for finance. I just want to, I'm going to move that we table both E7s and E12 until Kyle can give us his legal eagle update on the law on that. Right?
Yeah.
We're gonna motion to table the two E7 as well as E12.
Yes.
Any motion to approve,
I so move.
seconded by Mrs. Frizella, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on the second.
Motion by
I guess I motioned, right?
Walker.
Mrs. Frizella. Any discussion? Call roll on each.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco, Mr. Boone.
Yes.
So motion carries on tabling E7, and E12.
Now. E1, E2, E1 through E6, right? And then E8 to E11. Motion by Mrs. Revella, seconded by Mrs. Ferrara. Are there any discussions? Mr. Cruz, call roll, please.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Policy, I need a resolution F1. Motion by
I'll motion.
So moved.
Ferrara, seconded by.
I will second that. Is it okay, Denise?
Yeah, no, I just need to recuse myself from this.
Oh, yes.
Which one?
7, part of it.
Why?
Yeah,
Oh, I got you.
And seconded by Mr. Walker. Right?
Mhm.
Any discussion?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco, Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Public comment, seeing none. Moving on to, the resolution to adjourn our meeting. It is a 8:06. Our next Board of Education meeting will be held on April 16th, 2024, beginning at 6 p.m. with confidential, 7 p.m.
Need a motion.
Learning
We need a motion.
I need
to-
a motion.
I move it.
Motion. by
To
Mrs.
ad-
Frizella, seconded by.
Oh, first I want to congratulate Miss Prisco before
Oh,
I
yeah.
forgot all about it.
Oh, yes.
For achieving, sorry.
Master
I
board
got
member.
so For achieving master board member.
Congratulations.
status.
Congratulations.
No easy
She
feat.
will be presented with, I guess, her certificate, award, I don't know what you get,
Award
the
is
crown.
already, the crown, yes.
Man, you're fancy.
At
All
the-
gonna be acknowledged on.
at the,
May 9th.
Yes, May 9th at the Essex
Certified
County board meeting, so, yeah.
You're a good board president.
That is,
And
so
master
people who don't know, that is like the highest level that you can achieve
As a
on
board member.
as a board member at individual at NJSBA. So Pam has worked very hard to achieve that, and we are very proud of her.
We are.
I agree.
I also just want to point out, this is the first time we have had a shared services agreement official with the township on tonight's meeting. So thank you to Mr. Diarco and everyone that worked on making that happen.
How long is he, when's he done? I like him. He's done soon?
He's done soon.
February 25.
Oh, we
Yeah,
get one more
okay.
month
Well,
or another
well,
year. Okay.
yeah,
all
yeah.
right,
Another
very
year.
good.
Great,
So now I'm going to move to adjourn.
Karen?
I will second.
Verona? Okay, it is now 8:08. Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Agree with that?
See you all. Thank you.